Good morning to you. Good morning to your viewers.
Okay, Chris, I guess let's start with the big news. Will a return to a complete lockdown like the ECQ from exactly a year ago, would that be acceptable today?
As been stated by the authorities, they're not going to do, and I think businesses with obviously the government officials. In fact, later today, actually, I'll be joining on a webinar organised by McCarthy Business Club, actually also with Secretary Naglanas and other officials. And I think the way forward, as he's rightly stated, is a granular approach. What we're looking for as business is to keep moving forward. As stated many times, including by Secretary Lopez, I mean, the economy and the health go hand in hand. We need to work together. We need to reinforce health protocols. And of course, the companies have a big role to play. And let me stress again, which we've also supported in terms of Project ARC and Project Hope, is also testing. So, no, we don't look to see a return to ECQ. What we see is exactly what's been stated, keeping it focused, actually moving and keeping how we can manage COVID at the same time as keeping moving the economy forward.
How much setback do you think will businesses suffer given, new quarantine restrictions? And when you say localized lockdowns, that means every LGU might have its own restrictions, which could make, business transactions hard and challenging because you're going to be following different sets of rules when you cross boundaries or when you cross borders.
Well, I think what we're looking for in localized, as they've been saying, is very specific areas, whether it's in a particular barangay, with a specific building. And I think, as noted in your earlier comment by the grass, which was to have a uniformed curfew, was to actually ensure some degree of uniformity. Clearly, what we're looking for and hoping, and the authorities as well, I mean, we need to work, and obviously a concern is the case rises, but it's also good to see how we can work hand in hand, as I said, with our leading agency, which is the Secretary, which is Trade and Investment, how we can keep it localized, how we can ensure testing and health protocols, and use that, because obviously we also have, of course, as you know, the vaccines coming forward. And what we need to see here is to keep the support for the economy. The two go together, and it's how we can work hand in hand. And we appreciate the initiative of, as I said, the call today, that both public and private will be discussed. But I don't see, I think also the government is fairly clear, they don't see need or wish to return to ECQ, and we need to move together as a partner in this role.
Okay, Chris, just very quickly, because I know that you have a forum on March 23rd, and it's about, make it happen, which is really the theme of the Trade Department. And it's supposed to encourage the bigger role of Philippines in global business. Are you finding it hard to convince, foreign investors in general, to set up here or to partner with us, given how the Philippines seem to have failed to contain COVID-19, considering we've had the longest, the strictest lockdown, we're still logging the highest number of cases in the region?
Well, I think, look, all governments have been challenged on COVID. The Philippines, the UK has been challenged across Europe. I think let's look at some positive, let's see things we need to do. We've actually seen continuing interest in the Philippines. We've had a high number of companies in different sectors, agricultural, food and drink, machinery. We've actually worked again, as you know, with the UK British Embassy, and we've actually achieved things. However, saying that, I also strongly urge the passage of key legislation, such as the Retail Liberalization Act, the Public Service Act, the Foreign Investments Act, and of course also let's get CREATE signed in. Why do I say all this? Is that we need to also be able to communicate and promote back to the UK and British companies. The Philippines is moving forward, particularly on economic liberalization. And we're looking forward to seeing that passed in this Congress. That is in June. So let me kind of summarize. We've had interest. We've done very well in our partnership, which is the program we've been doing for the last 6 years. I'm not trying to make out that it's easy. It's not. And obviously we have to do everything virtually now, promoting to companies. But if we get that legislation passed, Mimi, we can also say the Philippines is moving forward, because what we want to create in the British Chamber is that the Philippines companies come to the Philippines, not just for obviously the Philippine business, but a gateway to Southeast Asia.
So you're essentially setting up for the long-term play beyond COVID-19.
Of course, yeah. I mean, look, my own self, I've been in the country 17 years. We look here and companies look to invest long term. What they're looking for now, though, and I would also reiterate, is the government needs to also give support. I mean, I think it's been Secretary Carl Chua has also said that legislation is a priority. We also look for continuing spending by government to support the economy, which is important, for jobs, to work together, as you quite rightly said, on COVID management, to assist. I think testing, public health protocols are key. I'd also, again, say, look at where work is done by Red Cross with the saliva test. We can use that. And at the same time, get this legislation passed. We want to herald what's going on in the Philippines. Yes, long term, but also short term is important to support the economy.
And speaking of short term, Chris, are there specific measures, government relief measures, that British companies want taken that may have not yet been taken by government, or measures that you think will need to be extended quickly to help tide businesses over? Could they be tax breaks, incentives to stay open? Are there, what's this wish list for British companies here?
Well, look, I think there's two things that should be done. I mean, let's look at some of the challenges. So first of all, of course, inflation has been rising, which at the time when the economy is under pressure, a lot of that's due to, as we understand, obviously food, particularly pork. We know the threat there. That's actually something where the UK can help. I'm in discussions with the Agricultural and Horticultural Board to see how we can assist in terms of British exports, particularly of pork, potentially of beef. That could bring down that. I also think that the support specifically for small to medium-sized enterprise, I think there's an act called the Guide Act. Let's not forget, 90% of all companies in the Philippines are small to medium-sized enterprises. And some of those are British or British-linked entities. So that's the support needed. I think also Banco Central is playing a key role. I mean, I think the support to companies that are under pressure, those where loans are under pressure, I think that's a key incentive. And also managing the peso, I think we need to keep that stable. And we've got to watch out, of course, for the fact, as you rightly termed in your earlier report, oil prices are going up. That also has an inflationary impact. So I think what we're looking for is the overall drive. I mean, obviously, the government has talked about public spending. We've seen the economy start to recover post-Christmas, New Year. I think that was actually managed well. Obviously, you're right to talk to me about the rise in the cases, but I think the key here is working together and longer term, and I can't stress this enough, this is the time to pass that legislation. I really want to make that point. By June, let's move forward. The lower house has done it. It's now in the Senate. If we get that forward, that is a great boost, which we can use and support the Department of Trade and Investment and herald that in the UK.
I imagine, Chris, that I know that you're wanting to highlight the high-tech manufacturing and IT BPM industries here in the Philippines.
Yes, I mean, I think, look, the Philippines has a lot to offer. I mean, actually, we've had discussions before. I think one of the key roles of the Philippines is the talent of its people. I mean, that's really an excellent, it's a really key wealth factor. And that's shown in tech, in high tech. And we've seen companies showing an interest. And we'd like companies to come here and invest and do business. We also have strong contacts with them. And I think, obviously, this Make It Happen on the 23rd of March, and we're partners, and we're delighted. And we'll work, of course, again with the Trade Investment Office and the Philippine Embassy in London. And let me also say all the chambers of commerce and the international trade advisors. I mean, there's a lot of support here. We've been doing this for 6 years together with the embassy. We look forward to many, many more years of doing it. But it's really the need now to act. And I think, if I may say, the legislation, of course, once it passed, will take time to obviously see companies come in. But it's the point of saying the Philippines is opening up. We want more companies to come in. We want to be just here in Asia, we want to come to Southeast Asia.
Oh.
And I think UK companies have shown their interest.
Final question, Chris. I mean, when you talk to your member companies from BCCP, what kind of working assumptions are they making right now about, when life gets back to normal, when demand destruction is addressed, when supply normalizes? What's the time horizon? Is it next year or 2023?
I think what companies are looking at is obviously, first of all, it's linked to a number of factors. It's linked to obviously continuing managing COVID. Obviously, we're very interested in and working with the rollout of the vaccine. Let's not forget AstraZeneca, of course, is a leading member of the British Chamber. And obviously the embassy was heavily involved in that role, as was, of course, Project Hope. And I think that's very important. There's a lot of potential, obviously, vaccines coming in. That will probably come in, and we're looking more towards the end of this year. I think our members are looking more at 2022, end of 21. But key to that is supporting the economy as it's going through. Our members, it's been a challenging time, but I think if we can work together and manage this, we keep the optimism going. And I would stress finally the support from the government, as you've rightly termed. So in conclusion, I'd say they're looking towards more as we go through with the rollout and continuing to do testing, some improvement towards the end of 21, but more importantly, looking then obviously for 22 and onwards.
Okay, on that note, Chris, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day for
Have a good
everybody
day.
in the Philippines. Bye now. Thank you.
Thank you.